let's deal with the fact that though we are forgiven, aren't there still consequences for our sins?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Christians,
or are we just forgiven and it's not there anymore? Are there worldly consequences that we'll still deal with even if we are forgiven?
yeah, we share common things with unbelievers. So, if you commit an act of murder, you'll get charged just like everybody else. If you sleep with someone with with the illness, you'll get it too. Like, there are things we can share. And, so yeah, I think it's important to note, that forgiveness and this topic that we're talking about, we're not trying to be insensitive, and we're also not trying to paint a picture of this person who did this either. There are some, right? Because there's some realities there that we see and we observe.
Yeah.
But even if she was a racist and if she did all these things and she had ill motives, some of the reactions that I've seen people,
it doesn't warrant.
It's inexcusable, man.
Yeah, whether she's an unbeliever, whether she's a racist, whether she's a hateful person, any of those things don't. Because people are saying, if the person repents, like someone brought up Luke 17, pay attention to yourselves. If your brother sins, rebuke him, and if he repents, forgive him. But we're not dealing with the brother or sister in the faith right now.
Right.
We're not dealing with someone who has wronged us and then we can go to them as a brother or sister in the faith. We're dealing with someone who is an unbeliever.
Right. Yeah.
That's why they handed her the Bible. The judge handed her the Bible and said, I hope that you take your jail time and really get to know God.
Right.
And Botham's brother said, I hope that you give your life to Christ. Like, these are things that these are obvious things. She's not a believer. So we can't expect that from her.
And why those of us who are really spectators, you know what I'm saying, we're watching this taking place.
Yeah.
Why, and I talked about this earlier with you, it seems as if we can't celebrate what he did.
Yeah.
And forgiving her, hugging her, why can't we celebrate that? Why, you know what I'm saying? Like, because what he did there and what the crime committed, those are two different things. As Christians, I think we should have looked at that and say, that's what we're supposed to do, and really highlight that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I hear other voices, I hear other people, and even how I feel sometimes, like, what about the overall problem, that seems to be the case, where it seems as if justice is dispensed differently, for the same crime, or
right.
You know what I'm
saying? What do we do then, right? Yeah.
Because honestly, bro, as a Hispanic and you as black, like,
hold up, I'm
yeah, you're Black Rican. You're Black Rican.
Yeah. Don't get it twisted, y'all. I'm not. I always got to say that though, because for real,
well,
I'm more Puerto Rican than I am black.
Okay, you're Black Rican.
Yeah. Afro Latino.
Right.
That's the correct term nowadays.
Right. But I think we've seen enough of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Just up close, and it's like you're shaking your head and asking yourself why. Why is this the case? Why does this seem to happen often in our context? But even though that be the case, no matter what context, we're called to forgive. We're called to love our enemies and do good to those who persecute us.
Yeah.
That's the standard, and the only way you could really do that is really dig deep enough to understand what the gospel is. It really comes back to that, man. That's fundamental to the Christian faith. So I understand the anger and frustration. I don't understand the public outrage of people who call themselves Christian but look angry. You know what I'm saying?
It's very similar to the brother that came home and saw his brother being forgiven, the prodigal son.
Yeah.
That same type of hatred, that same type of anger that the father would embrace.
Yeah.
People are getting mad. Like, the brother got mad that the father embraced the prodigal son when he came home after doing that horrible stuff. People are getting mad as if they're the brother looking at the Christian forgiving, literally hugging.
Yeah.
The father of the prodigal son hugged him when he came back, right? Botham's brother hugs her, and people were like, what? You just hugged your oppressor. And it's like, yo,
Right.
that's a whole nother episode within itself.
Right.
The whole oppressor, the white man being the oppressor. I understand where they're coming from. I don't agree with it, but I understand where they're coming from. But to hug your oppressor, obviously, that has gotten people really mad. Rodney Rock, though, he commented on what we're saying. He said, and someone else brought up the same situation in the Bible. It says, I'm glad you guys are talking about this forgiveness. In my view, this topic is not talked about enough. Frankly, the topic of forgiveness might be one of, if not the most difficult subjects in the Christian community. It's such a sensitive topic that it shocks us when we actually see it practiced right in front of our eyes. I mean, just think about it. Jesus knew he was about to get murdered, yet while on the cross, he pleaded with the Father to forgive them. While we're there with Jesus on the cross, think back to the two people that committed crimes that were right next to him. Think about the man who was not repentant, right? And he's pretty much spit in Jesus's face and said, you ain't God, like you ain't nobody special, otherwise you get us down from here on the cross. The other guy knew that he committed the crime and didn't want out of his punishment. Isn't that crazy? Because we're talking about, should a person still be punished? The other man didn't want to go unpunished because he knew what he did was wrong. He wasn't looking to get out of it scot-free. All he wanted was Jesus to remember him when he was in paradise. He accepted the punishment and the consequences that came from his sin. Yet he wanted Jesus to forgive him and remember him in paradise. Yeah. And so that kind of answers the question, should she be serving time? Are there consequences to our sins where we'll have to pay even if we're forgiven? I'm not saying that she's forgiven. I don't know if she's a Christian or not. But even if so, should she have to serve time? Yeah. That's what we're saying here. Yeah. It's fully accepted in the scriptures. And so we need to fully accept it in real life.